Shamsaradava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Samsarada Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Praptasakayana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditra Madhya Manasurasena Romanchakam pasru taranga bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam sa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritvaiva Tripti Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Davayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayono ratikeli sidhai Yaya live jokte apekshaniya nikunjayona tatrati daksha ativalabhasya vande gurushi charanara vrindam Sakshadharitvena samasta shastre Ruktastathava vyata eva sadhve Sakshadharitvena Kintu prabhoja Priya eva tasya Vande gurashi charanara vindam Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasada Nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasada Dhyayam stuvam tasya Yasatri sanyam Vande gurashi charanara vrindam Vande gurashi charanara vrindam Vande gurashi charanara vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Nama Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatarisha Tarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Shunavadi Pachatari Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ramo Ramo, Hari Hari, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hariyaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govindara Shrimadhusudan, Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Shri Radha Nilamada Radha Nilamada Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Shri Radhe. Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra, Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sitaram, 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 Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur Pramanande. Jai Vishnu Par Paramahansa Prabhupada Jagacharya Sutra Sri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Abhachara Vinna Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapaka Acharya Vaishnava Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhara Ki Jai. श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास सतगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नाम आचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत कुछ वैष्णवृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवसरि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन के जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद गुरु चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावर अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधानी राम संकीर्तन जगह की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद निदांग ट्रांसडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। दिलो श्री राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप के चक्रधाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रमानंदे। All glories to the Assembly of Bodies. All glories to the Assembly of Bodies. All glories to the Assembly of Bodies. All glories to Shri Guru Shri Guru.
Namaste Narashinhaya.
Namaste Narashinhaya.
Namaste Narashinhaya. Prahlada Lada Daine.
Prahlada Dalita Hiranyakashipu Kalavinda Isavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha
Jaya
Sabadeta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha
Jaya Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha
Jaya Narsingha Dev Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev
Jaya Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha
Jaya Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev Jaya Narsingha Dev
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaura Hari Bol
Krishnadev Bhagavan ki jai Prahlad Maharaj ki jai
Jai Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namah Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namah Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki Jai Okay.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Prayasi Krishna Prayasi Nama Namaha
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Abhilashi
Jito Mara Sharanalo Tara Pancha Purana Ho
Jai Tamara Sharanara Taravancha Purana
Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavan Vasi
Tumi Kripa Kari Karatare Vrindavanavasi
Murae Abhilash Vilas Kunj Diyo
Moraiya Vela Vilas Kunja Diyova
Nayane Haribo Sada Jugal Ruparasi
Aminayane Nivo Sada Jugalam Parasi
Ini Vedana Dharo Sakiranugata Koro
Eni Vedana Dhara Sakirayana Latakara
Seva Adhikara Diye Koro Nijadasi
Sevayadikara Diye Karani Jadasi
Dina Krishna Dase Goe Jina Mora Goe
Na Krishna Das Koi Namora
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jina Bhasi
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sarayana Vasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jina Bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatyadi Kanisa Kani Kani Prana Santi Pradachina Praye Pane
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatyadi Kanisa Kani Kani Prana Santi Pradachina Praye Pane
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatyadi Kanisa Tani tani prana santi prachana pade pade.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय.
Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prani Devi Satavatai. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prani Devi Satavatai. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestowing myself upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence and pleasure to Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me a honored servant. This very fallen and lovely servant of Krishna praise. May I always sing love of Shri Radha. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Shri Shri Kastakam ki jai. Jaito Akana Danam Baba Madhavani Nivapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Badu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vadanam Pratipadam Punamita Swadanam Savatmasnam Paramparavinati Krishna. Namnam Akari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamitta Large, but His presence raises the benediction moon. It is a life of transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss
and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you possess all your transcendental names. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of your kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of God.
Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your costly devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am falling into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yore of the street. O my Lord, when my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Will my voice choke up? May the hairs of my body stand on end with the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am concentrating a moment to get up to the years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all taken into the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he surely answers, even if sun does not rock from his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always
I
my
worship,
worship.
O Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. The blessed are the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord, to consider the names of demigods, like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature pursuant to the Vedic version of imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. to commit sinful activities and the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired Krishna prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances to our Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for fallen, conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, Kripasindubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Staya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Varnachari Visesa Sunivar Paskatistani. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janma Yasya Yato Nivayad Itaratascha Teso Vikyaswarat. Tene Brahma Hridaya Atikavaye Tejo Vari Madam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mesha Brahmna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire, land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditated upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitarotra paramo nirmatsanam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va pure Ishvara Sadyo Hridi Avuridite Tra Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold mystery. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Sukamukad amrita dravya samyatam Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam Muhur aho ratka bhuvi bhavuka. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam. the mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hiryantak Stohi Bhadrani Vidunati Suhitsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engaged in hearing of him. Nasta presu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service to the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobadayasche chetetāranavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material loss and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangha Jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya siyante chasya karmani drista evat manishware. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality, Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Street as such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Street as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Street as such a spiritual master. This spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Street of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika
And their qualities, names, and forms.
and the qualities named.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The master requires to relish this at every moment.
I offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
The spiritual master is very because he's expert in assisting the gopis at different times, make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hari Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadirada Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Chintamani Prakadasatma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksavrite Susurabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Visheshuksobham Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Jebangalitani Tapakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalen Driyavrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadvijvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manasomuni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintyatatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayitam Jagadanda Koti Yaschakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Adantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajastataiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasapati Bhavitavis Kabirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabi Goloka eva nivasata kilatma bhuto. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. Santak Sadaiva Hridayesu Vilokayanti. Yam Shama Sundarim Achintya Gunaswarupam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Ramadi Murti Sukalani Namena Tistan. Nana Avataram Akarod Bhuvanesu Kintu. Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti. Kotish Vasesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam. Tad Brahmaniskalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Maya Hiyasya Jagaranda Satani Sute. Jaigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamana. Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Maya Hiyasya Jagaranda Satani Sute. Trigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamana. Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu. Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya. Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayat Yajastram. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Golokanamni Nijadamni Talecha Tasya. Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute Sutesu. Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vitaschayena. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Shristi Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Saktireka. Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga. Ichanarupam Apiyasya Chichesta Tesa. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesa Yoga. Sanjayate Nahitata Pritagasti Heto. Ya Sambhutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Dipachar Evhita Santaram Abhyupetya. Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma. Yastadrikeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajati Sma Yoga. Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupaha. Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasyaika Nisvasitakalam Atavalambya. Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nataha. Vishnur Mahansahi Yasya Kala Vishesho. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Najesu Tejaha. Sviyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitadvatatra. Brahma Yesa Jagadanda Vidana Karta. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yat Pada Palavayugam Vinidaya Kumbha. Dvandve Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Rajaha. Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Maruddisasya Kalasta Tatma Manasitti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vishanti Cha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yas Chaksuresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Yasya Nyaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Dayasta Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Chabhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhavai Sanchitya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapuriti Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumishchintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chid Anantam Dojoti Param Apitad Asvadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Sravati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan Nime Sardakyu Vavachiti Nahi Atrapi Samaya Bhaje Smita Dvitvam Tamaham Iha Golokamitiyam Vedantaste Santakshiti Viravachara Katipaye Upanishad ki jai. Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate.
Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate.
Kurvam Eva Hasa Kurv Ishavaisham Idam Sarvam Jat Kinja Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Bunjitaham Agritaha Kisasviddanam
Ishavasamidam Sarvam Jat Kinja Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Bunjita Nagradakasya.
Kurvan Eva Karmani Jiva Chekchatam Samaha Imam Twayi Nanditetos Dina Karma Lipite Nare Asuryana Mate Loka Andinas Tamasavritaha Tanste Pritya Vigachanti Yeke Chatma Hano Janaha Anajadika Manasoja Vyurnena Devam Apravam Pravama Sata Davato Nyana Titi Tistat Tasminapo Matariswa Dadati Tadejati Tanejati Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadu Sarvasya Bhayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Evanupasyati Sarvabhutesha Chatmanam Taturna Vichigupsate Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Bhutvijanataha Tatra Ko Mohakaha Sukha Ekatvam Anupasyataha Sa prayagachu kamakayam avudam asnavidam sudam apapavidam kavir manisi paribu swayambhu yatatat yatoratan vyadadach jasvatipyaha samabhyaha.
Sabapyagachu kam akayama vranam asnaviram sudam apakabidam kabir manisi tribun swayambhu yato ritam yadaracha cha
Andam tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuya vate tamo yayu vidyayam rataha.
Andam tama pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo ya uvidyayam rataha.
Anyad evahur vidyaya anyadahur vidyaya iti susrumadhiranam yenastad vichachaksire.
Anyadeva uvidyaya anyadahur vidyaya iti sushrumandiranam yenastad vichakshire.
Vidyam cha yasyastad vedobhayam saha vidyaya militam tirva vidyayam ritamasnute.
Vidyam cha yas tad avido bhayam saha avidyam rityum chitva vidyayamrita asmite.
Andham tamaha pravisanti ye sambhutim upasyate tato bhuya vate tamo yayu sambhutam rataha.
Anantam pravishanti yesamuktam upasate tato bhuya yadi tamo yau samvritam rataha.
Anyadevahur sambhavat anyadahur sambhavat iti susrumadhiranam yenastad vichachaksire.
Anyadeva sambhavat anyadeva sambhavat iti sushrumadhiranam yenastad vichakshire.
Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vedobhayam saha vinasena militum tirva sambhutam ritamasnute.
Vinasena militum tirva sambhutam ritam asmite.
Hiranmayana patrena satyasya piyatam mukam tatvam pusama pavrinu satyadharma yadristaye.
Hiranayena patrena satyaya pihita mukham tattvam pusam apavrino satyadharma.
Pusane kaseyamastruya prajapatya vyuharasmin samaho tejo yatte rupam kalyanatamam tate pasyami yo savaso purushaha soham asmi.
Usamekashiyama surya prajapatya yudam rasim samhatejo yate rupam kalyam tanam tate pusami usamaso pritisoha.
Vayuraninam amritam atedam basmantam sarinam om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara.
Vayur anilamam vitam adina basmatam sharinam om kratushmara kritam smara kratushmara krita smara.
Om Agninaya Supatara Isman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vivan Yodajmas Juhuranamino Buyastam Tinama Uktim Vedama Om Tatsat. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, text number 14 again. Jaipistaporu Bayaha Sanashingarupam Kritva Brahmadbru Kutidam Strukharala Vaktram Daityendra Gadaya Bipatantam Arad Uro Nipatya Vida Dara Nakai Spurantam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The personality of God had assumed the incarnation of Nrsingadev in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigods. He killed the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, who challenged the Lord with a club in his hand by placing the demon on his thighs and piercing him with his nails, rolling his eyebrows in anger and showing his fearful teeth and mouth. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The history of Hiranyakashipu and his great devotee son Prahlada Maharaj is narrated in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hiranyakashipu became very powerful by material achievements and thought himself to be immortal by the grace of Brahma. And declined to award him, Brahmaji declined to award him the benediction of immortality because he himself is not an immortal being. But Hiranyakashipu derived Brahmaji's benediction in a roundabout way, almost equal to becoming an immortal being. Hiranyakashipu was sure that he would not be killed by any man or demigod or by any kind of known weapon, nor would he die in day or night. The Lord, however, assumed the incarnation of half man and half lion, which was beyond the imagination of a materialistic demon like Hiranyakashipu, and thus, keeping pace with the benediction of Brahmaji, the Lord killed him. He killed him on his lap, so that he was killed neither on the land, nor on the water, nor in the sky. The demon was pierced by Nishinga's nails, which were beyond human weapons imaginable by Hiranyakashipu. The literal meaning of Hiranyakashipu is one who is after gold and soft bedding, the ultimate aim of all materialistic men. Such demoniac men, who have no relationship with God, gradually become puffed up by material acquisitions and begin to challenge the authority of the Supreme Lord and torture those who are devotees of the Lord. Prahlad Maharaja happened to be the son of Hiranyakashipu, and because the boy was a great devotee, his father tortured him to the best of his ability. In this extreme situation, the Lord assumed the incarnation of Nishingadeva, and just to finish the enemy of the demigods, the Lord killed Hiranyakashipu in a manner beyond the demon's imagination. Materialistic plans of godless demons are always frustrated by the all-powerful Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The personality of Godhead assumed the incarnation of Nishingadev in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigods. He killed the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, who challenged the Lord with a club in his hand. He, by placing the demon on his thighs and piercing him with his nails, rolling his eyebrows in anger and showing his fearful teeth and mouth. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, I'm going to discuss a few things here. First of all, there's a very nice verse in the Canto 7, Chapter 13, verse number 27, which says, "The actual form of life for the living entities is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. This happiness can be achieved only when one stops all materialistic activities. Material sense enjoyment is simply imagination. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I have ceased from all material activities and am lying down here." So, this is an amazing discussion that takes place between Prahlad Maharaj and a very strange person who is a avadut yogi, who's doing a type of severe penance, which is called the penance that is similar to what is the name of that? It's called a person is doing tapasya like a cobra. Oh, I'm sorry, like a python. So what does a python do? He stays in one place, doesn't move, and he waits for some prey to come near him and eats it. So he doesn't go like the tiger searching. He just stays in one place. So Prahlad Maharaj realizes that this yogi, who is acting like a python, is a very elevated saint. And therefore he approaches him And he begins to ask him questions very humbly to find out why. He notices something, that this yogi is very fat. He's not skinny like normal yogis. And he's perplexed and starts asking him questions. How come he's fat and not skinny? But anyway, at this point, when we get to verse number 1327, Prabhupada explains that the actual form of life for living entity is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. This happiness can be achieved only when one stops all materialistic activities. Material sense enjoyment is simply imagination. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I have ceased from all material activities and am lying down here. So that's what the Python tells Maharaj Pariksit. But in the purport is very interesting, because Prabhupada says the difference between the philosophy of the Mayavadis and that of the Vaishnavas is explained herein. Both the Mayavadis and Vaishnavas know that in materialistic activities there's no happiness. The Mayavadi philosophers, therefore, adhering to the slogan, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, that is, Brahman is the reality and Jagat, the whole material creation, is false and it's an illusion. It doesn't really exist. So these Mayavadis want to refrain from false materialistic activities. They want to stop all activities and merge in the supreme Brahman. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, however, if one simply ceases from materialistic activity, one cannot remain inactive for very long. And therefore, everyone should engage himself in spiritual activities which will solve the problem of suffering in this material world. An amazing statement. It is said, therefore, that although the Mayavadi philosophers strive to refrain from materialistic activities and merge in Brahman, and although they may actually merge in the Brahman existence, for want of activity they fall down again into the materialistic activity. Arura Krishna param padam tata patanti adha. Thus, that's a quote from a verse, very famous verse, in the, I think it's the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, thus the so-called renouncer, unable to remain in meditation upon Brahman, returns to materialistic activities by opening hospitals and schools and so on, therefore simply cultivating knowledge that materialistic activities cannot give one happiness, and that one should consequently cease from such activities, is insufficient. One should cease from material activities and take up spiritual activities. Then the solution to the problem will be achieved. Spiritual activities are activities performed according to the order of Krishna. Anukulyena Krishnana Silanam. If one does whatever Krishna says, his activities are not material. For example, when Arjuna fought in response to the order of Krishna, his activities were not material. Fighting for sense gratification is a materialistic activity, but fighting by the order of Krishna is spiritual. By spiritual activities, one becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead, and then enjoy blissful life eternally. Here, in the material world, everything is but a mental concoction that will never give us real happiness. The practical solution, therefore, is to cease from materialistic activities and engage in spiritual activities. Yasnarta karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana. If one works for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Lord, Yajna, or Vishnu, one is in liberated life. If one fails to do so, however, he remains in a life of bondage. So this is a wonderful purport that explains the difference between the Mayavadis and the difference between the Vaishnavas, although they both agree that materialistic life is illusory and it's a cause of suffering rather than real happiness. But the Mayavadi solution is to give up all activity. But that's not a tenable situation. They will eventually be forced to act. But the Mayavadi solution is give up all activities. The Vaishnava solution is give up all materialistic activities, but engage all the time in spiritual activities to please Krishna, according to Krishna's instructions and instructions coming through parampara and bona fide gurus. Okay, so that's a very important point. Now, second very important point is when Hiranyakashipu is questioning his son, what was the best thing that his teachers taught him? Prahlad Maharaj answers in a wonderful way, but although what he says is wonderful, it makes his father very angry and he wants to kill him. So Hiranyakashipu said, "My dear Prahlad, my dear son, O long-lived one, for so much time you have heard many things from your teachers. Now please repeat to me whatever you think is the best of that knowledge." Okay. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes, in this verse, Hiranyakashipu inquires from his son what he has learned from his guru. Prahlad Maharaj's gurus were of two kinds. Sanda and Amarka, the sons of Sukracharya, in the seminal disciplic succession, were the gurus appointed by his father, but his other guru was the exalted Narada Muni, who had instructed Prahlada while Prahlada was within the womb of his mother. Prahlada Maharaja responded to the inquiry of his father with the instructions he had received from his spiritual master, Narada. Thus there was again a difference of opinion because Prahlad Maharaja wanted to relate the best thing he had learned from his spiritual master, whereas Hiranyakashipu expected to hear about the politics and diplomacy that he learned from Sanda and Amarka. Prahlada had learned from Sanda and Amarka. Now, the dissension between the father and son became increasingly intense as Prahlad Maharaj began to say what he had learned from his guru, Narada Muni. So the next verse is a famous verse. It says, Shri Prahlada Uvacha Shavanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam Itipum Sarpita Vishnu Bhaktischan Navalakshana Kriyate Bhagavat Udha Tanmanye Ditam Uttamam. So this is 7th canto, 5th chapter, 23rd and 24th verse. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him, in other words, serving him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has deluded his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Now, this is one of the longest purports in the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. It goes on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 pages. It's like a little book. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read one part that I find extremely interesting. And it says, well, he goes through each one of these points. What is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam. Archanam. Okay. And then Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam. Well, the part I want to read, he talks about Pada Sevanam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. It's number 4. So Prabhupada says, according to one's taste and strength, hearing, chanting, and remembrance may be followed by Pada Sevanam. One obtains the perfection of remembering when one constantly thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. Being intensely attached to thinking of the Lord's lotus feet is called Pada Sevanam. When one is particularly adherent to the process of Pada Sevanam, this process gradually includes other processes, such as seeing the form of the Lord, touching the form of the Lord, circumambulating the form or temple of the Lord, visiting such places as Jagannath Puri, Dwarka, and Mathura, to see the Lord's form, and bathing in the Ganges or Yamuna. Bathing in the Ganges and serving a pure Vaishnava are also known as Tadiya Upasanam. This is also Pada Sevanam. The word Tadiya means in relationship with the Lord, and service to the Vaishnava. Tulsi, Ganges, and Yamuna are included in Pada Sevanam. All these processes of Pada Sevanam help one advance in spiritual life very quickly. Okay, so what's remarkable here is that being in relationship with the Lord is also extended to service to Vaishnavas, service to Tulsi, service to the Ganges, and service to Yamuna. This is all included in Pada Sevanam, or serving the lotus feet of the Lord. And all these processes help one to make advancement in spiritual life. So the next one, Archanam, also is very interesting. And Prabhupada writes, after Pada Sevanam comes the process of Archanam, worship of the deity. If one is interested in the process of Archanam, one must positively take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and learn the process from him. There are many books for Archana, especially Narada Pancharatra. In this age, the Pancharatra system is particularly recommended for Archana, deity worship. There are 2 systems of Archana, the Bhagavata system and the Pancharatriki system. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's no recommendation of Pancharatrika worship because in this Kali Yuga, even without deity worship, everything can be perfectly performed simply through hearing, chanting, remembering, and worship of the lotus feet of the Lord. Rupa Goswami states, Parikshit Maharaj attained salvation simply by hearing, and Sukadeva Goswami attained salvation simply by chanting. Prahlad Maharaj attained salvation by remembering the Lord. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, attained perfection by worshipping the Lord's lotus feet. Prithu Maharaj attained salvation by worshipping the deity of the Lord. Akura attained salvation by offering prayers. Hanuman by rendering service. Arjuna by establishing friendship with the Lord, and Bali Maharaj by offering everything to the service of the Lord. All these great devotees served the Lord according to a particular process, but every one of them attained salvation and became eligible to return home back to Godhead. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is therefore recommended that initiated devotees follow the principles of Narada Pancharatra by worshipping the deity in the temple, especially for householder devotees who are opulent in material possessions. The path of deity worship is strongly recommended. An opulent householder devotee who does not engage his hard-earned money in the service of the Lord is called a miser. One should not engage paid brahmanas to worship the deity. If one, see, that's the case in India. All the banniyas, they hire a brahmana who comes every day and does a little bit of puja in their shop. One should not engage paid brahmanas to worship the deity. If one does not personally worship the deity but engages paid servants instead, he is considered lazy, and his worship of the deity is called artificial. An opulent householder can collect luxurious paraphernalia for deity worship, and consequently for householder devotees, the worship of the deity is compulsory. In our Krishna consciousness movement, there are brahmacharis, grihastas, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, but the deity worship in the temple should be performed especially by the householders. The brahmacharis can go with the sannyasis to preach, and the vanaprasthas should prepare themselves for the next status of renounced life, sannyasa. Grihastha devotees, however, are generally engaged in material activities. Therefore, if they do not take to deity worship, their falling down is positively assured. Whoa, what a statement. Their falling down is positively assured. Deity worship means following the rules and regulations precisely. That will keep one steady in devotional service. Generally, householders have children, and then the wives of the householders should be engaged in caring for the children, just as women acting as teachers care for the children in a nursery school. Okay, so this gives a lot of information. It continues. It says, Grihastha devotees must adopt the archana vidi, or deity worship, according to the suitable arrangements and directions given by the spiritual master. Regarding those unable to take to deity worship in the temple, there is the following statement in Agni Purana. Any householder devotee circumstantially unable to worship the deity must at least see the deity worship, and in this way he may achieve success also. The special purpose of the deity worship is to keep oneself always pure and clean. Grihastha devotees should be actual examples of cleanliness. Deity worship should be continued along with hearing and chanting. Therefore, every mantra is preceded by the word Namah. In all the mantras, there are specific potencies, of which the Grihastha devotees must take advantage. There are many mantras preceded by the word Namah, but if one chants the holy name of the Lord, he receives the result of chanting Nama many times. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can reach the platform of love of Godhead. One might ask, then what is the necessity of being initiated? The answer is that even though the chanting of the holy name is sufficient to enable one to progress in spiritual life to the standard of love of Godhead, one is nonetheless susceptible to contamination because of possessing a material body. Consequently, special stress is given to the archana vidi, or deity worship. One should therefore regularly take advantage of both the Bhagavata process and the Panchatrika process. Deity worship has two divisions, namely pure and mixed with fruitive activities. For one who is steady, deity worship is compulsory. Observing the various types of festivals, such as Sri Janmashtami, Rama Navami, and Nrsimha Chaturdasi, is also included in the process of deity worship. In other words, it is compulsory for household devotees to observe these festivals. Now, let us discuss the offenses in deity worship. The following are offenses. 1. To enter the temple with shoes or being carried on a palanquin. 2. Not to observe the prescribed festivals. 3. To avoid offering obeisances in front of the deity. 4. To offer prayers in an unclean state and not having washed one's hands after eating. Next, to offer obeisances with one hand. Next, to circumambulate directly in front of the deity. Next, to spread one's legs before the deity. Next, to sit before the deity while holding one's ankles with one's hands. Next, to lie down before the deity. Next, to eat before the deity. Next, to speak lies before the deity. Next, to address someone loudly before the deity. Next, to talk nonsense before the deity. Next, to cry before the deity. Next, to argue before the deity. Next, to chastise someone before the deity. Next, to show someone favor before the deity. Next, to use harsh words before the deity. Next, to wear a woolen blanket before the deity. Next, to blaspheme someone before the deity. Next, to worship someone else before the deity. Next, to use vulgar language before the deity. Next, to pass air before the deity. Next, to avoid very opulent worship of the deity, even though one is able to perform it. Next, we'll read that one again. To avoid very opulent worship of the deity, even though one is able to perform it. Next, to eat something not offered to the deity. Next, to avoid offering fresh fruits to the deity according to the season. Next, to offer food to the deity which has already been used or from which has first been given to others. In other words, food should not be distributed to anyone else until it has been offered to the deity. Next, to sit with one's back toward the deity. Next, to offer obeisances to someone else in front of the deity. Next, not to chant proper prayers when offering obeisances to the spiritual master. Next, to praise oneself before the deity. And last, to blaspheme the demigods in the worship of the deity. These 35 offenses, these 32 offenses should be avoided. In the Varaha Purana, the following offenses are mentioned. 1. To eat in the house of a rich man. 2. To enter the deity room in the dark. 3. To worship the deity without following the regulative principles. 4. To enter the temple without vibrating any sound. That's why there should be a bell. It should ring the bell. Or at least say Hare Krishna real loud. To collect food that has been seen by a dog. To break silence while offering worship to the deity. To go to the toilet during the time of worshiping the deity. To offer incense without offering flowers. And to worship the deity with forbidden flowers. To begin worship without having washed one's teeth. To begin worship after sex. To touch a lamp, dead body, or a woman during her menstrual period. Or to put on red or bluish clothing. Unwashed clothing, the clothing of others, or soiled clothing. Other offenses are to worship the deity after seeing a dead body, to pass air before the deity, to show anger before the deity, and to worship the deity just after returning from a crematorium. After eating, one should not worship the deity until one has digested his food, nor should one touch the deity or engage in any deity worship after eating safflower oil or hing. These are all offenses. Wow. So you see, grihastas have a lot of responsibilities. Okay, so there's more to this, but we'll stop right there. Like I said, it's a very long purport, and he's given all this attention to the grihastas and deity worship. Okay, maybe we'll do one more paragraph. In other places, the following offenses are listed. 1. To be against the scriptural injunctions of the Vedic literature or to disrespect within one's heart the Srimad Bhagavatam, while externally falsely accepting its principles. 2. To introduce differing shastras. 3. To chew pan and betel before the deity. 4. To keep flowers for worship on the leaf of a castor oil plant. Next, to worship the deity in the afternoon. Next, to sit on the altar or to sit on the floor to worship the deity without a seat. Next, to touch the deity with the left hand while bathing the deity. Wow. Next, to worship the deity with a stale or used flower. Next, to spit while worshiping the deity. Next, to advertise one's glory while worshiping the deity. Next, to apply tilaka to one's forehead in a curved way. Next, to enter the temple without having washed one's feet. Next, to offer the deity food cooked by an uninitiated person. Next, to worship the deity and offer boga within the vision of an uninitiated person or non-Vaishnava. Next, to offer worship to the deity without worshiping Vaikuntha deities like Ganesha. Next, to worship the deity while perspiring. Next, to refuse flowers offered to the deity. Next, to take a vow or oath in the holy name of the Lord. Wow. If one commits any of the above offenses, one must read at least one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is confirmed in the Skanda Purana, Avanti Kanda. Similarly, there is another injunction stating that one who reads the 1,000 names of Vishnu can be released from all offenses. In the same Skanda Purana, Reva Kanda, it is said that one who recites prayers to Tulsi or sows a Tulsi seed is also freed from all offenses. Similarly, one who worships the Salagram Shila can also be relieved of offenses. In the Brahmanda Purana, it is said that one who worships Lord Vishnu, whose four hands bear a conch shell, disc, lotus, flower, and club, can be relieved from the above offenses. In the Adi Varaha Purana, it is said that a worshipper who has committed offenses may fast for 1 day at the holy place known as Sokarava, and then bathe in the Ganges. In the process of worshiping the deity, it is sometimes enjoined that one worship the deity within the mind. In the Padma Purana Uttarakanda, it is said all persons can generally worship within the mind. The Gautamiya Tantra states, for a sannyasi who has no home, worship of the deity within the mind is recommended. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is stated by Lord Narayana that worship of the deity within the mind is called Manasa Puja. One can become free from the four miseries by this method. Sometimes worship from the mind can be independently executed according to the instructions of Avirhotra Muni, one of the Nava Yogendras, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. One may worship the deity by chanting all the mantras. 8 kinds of deities are mentioned in the sutras, in the Shastras, and the mental deity is one of them. In this regard, the following description is given in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Okay, we'll stop right there. There's still more to this, but I think, actually no, there's only one more paragraph. Okay, so let's finish it. In the city of Pratisthana Pura, long ago, there resided a Brahmana who was poverty-stricken but innocent and not dissatisfied. One day he heard a discourse in an assembly of Brahmanas concerning how to worship the deity in the temple. In that meeting, he also heard that the deity may be worshipped within the mind. After this incident, the Brahmana, having bathed in the Godavari river, began mentally worshipping the deity. He would wash the temple within his mind, and then in his imagination he would bring water from all the sacred rivers in golden and silver water pots. He collected all kinds of valuable paraphernalia for worship, and he worshipped the deity very gorgeously, beginning from bathing the deity and ending with offering arti. Thus he felt great happiness. After many years had passed in this way, one day within his mind he cooked rice, nice sweet rice with ghee, to worship the deity. He played, now we learned something new. We should put ghee in the sweet rice. I'm going to do that from now on. He placed the sweet rice on a golden dish and offered it to Lord Krishna. But he felt that the sweet rice was very hot, and therefore he touched it with his finger. He immediately felt that his finger had been burned by the hot sweet rice, and thus he began to lament. While the Brahmana was in pain, Lord Vishnu and Vaikuntha began smiling. And the goddess of fortune inquired from the Lord why he was smiling. Lord Vishnu then ordered his associates to bring the Brahmana to Vaikuntha. Thus the Brahmana attained the liberation of Samipya, facility of living near the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because of his sincerity in mentally worshiping the deity, it actually affected him. And the Lord realized the purity of this Brahmana and liberated him, brought him back to Vaikuntha right away. Haribol. So we see the Grihastas have a huge amount of responsibility if they follow it properly. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
Small clarification.
Yeah.
In the same purport, under the point 4, Pada Sevanam, the last line says, service to Vaishnava, Tulsi, Ganga and Yamuna are included in Pada Sevanam.
Yes, serving the lotus feet of the Lord.
So, sir, how to serve Ganga and
Oh, you go to Ganga and you offer her water back to her. And you pay a brahmana to do puja for Ganga. That's what people do in Haridwar.
I remember we did in childhood, but I didn't correlate with the Pada Sevanam. We went sometimes.
You please Ganga by offering her water back to her and doing arti too.
Sorry, at one part you said we can't offer incense before offering the flowers. But when we are doing arti, we offer incense.
Let me see. Let's see. It's such a long list of things. I don't remember that one, but I'm sure if you remember it, we must have read it. Anyway, you can look it up. 7th canto, 5th chapter. Yeah. It says to worship the deity in the afternoon. It's considered an offense. I didn't see this thing about the flowers. The only thing I remember is to refuse flowers offered to the deity. But that's not what you're talking about.
No, I think if I can search it up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Huh?
This is to offer incense without offering flowers.
Oh, okay.
Point number H.
Yeah, so what you said was wrong.
Yes, no, I said the same thing. Without offering incense, without offering flowers. So you should offer flowers before offering incense.
To offer incense without offering flowers.
Yeah, but we offer flowers. But it didn't say. No.
It just says the offer to offer incense without offering.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Pandomui Savadana Mate Janara Prasade Bhai E Baba Tori Ajaye Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Shitete Koriyakya Arana Koriya Maneyas Sa Arana Koriya Maneyasa Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Utamagati E prasade pure sarva sa E prasade pure sarva sa Chakshudana dilaje janme janme Prabhu se Divya Gyani de Prokasito Shri Chakshudana dilaje janme janme Prabhu se Divya Gyani de Prokasito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Vidya Vinasa Jate Vedika Janara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu Lokenat Lokera Jivana Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mori Pada Jaya Ebe Asku Sukti Bhuvana Mahaprabhu Kora Doya Deha Mori Padachaya Ebeyasa Shikti Bhuvana Loye Pade Loye La Sarana Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai. Jayo Vishnupad, Paramahansa Pararaja Gacharastatra Satrashi, Shrimadi's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vajracharya. Nirvisesa Sunyavani Paskatya Nisata. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we attain to pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Ki